All right, so if you looked at the board, you're going to see this is what we're going to work on today. Punch speed. All right, so just real quickly, when you break down a punch, the extension, which is when the hand comes away from the face, it's about 40% of the punch duration. The point of contact through retraction is about 60% of the punch duration. That being the case, if you focus on the longer and slower dimension of the punch, this will have a more immediate speed impact. It will reduce the time in contact as well. So what does that mean? That's where I'm going to refer you to this. Power equals work divided by time. Because of the nature of division, if I increase time, what happens to power? It goes down. Exactly. So what does that mean? That means when you throw a punch, the longer your fist is in contact with your intended target, your power actually goes down. And you go from the distinction of a thing being a strike to being a push. That's why a push doesn't feel as hard as a punch, right? Reduce the amount of time in contact. So when you focus on retraction, it helps you reduce the time in contact of your fist with the intended target. So if you take those two things into consideration, mathematically, by default, you're going to have more power if you focus on the retraction speed, more importantly, than the delivery speed. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this by working on the right hand. So we're going to just throw a couple right hands and we're going to focus on the pulling motion, right? So punch slightly behind the target. That means if you're imagining your punching bag, let's say you're punching the word title on the bag. I want you to imagine you're actually punching an inch behind it instead of actually hitting that point. Does that make sense? All right, so we're just going to work on throwing the two. We're going to focus on making everything our hands do reactive to what the rest of our body is doing. And that's all going to initiate in the feet, right? So it's a pull from the foot into the extension, and then we're going to focus on the attraction, on the retraction. So what it's going to look like is that. If
an inch behind, meaning you don't touch the bag?
No, an inch behind and not in front of it. That would be in front of it, behind it, meaning punch through the target. All right. So again, everything that your hand does is a reaction to the body and a reaction to your feet. If you see the way that punch looks, it looks kind of funny because I'm pulling back. I'm putting more effort into pulling the fist back. Well, if you're throwing a combination, which we should always be throwing punches in bunches, the faster you bring your hand back, the faster you can send it out for another delivery. Therefore, it's a compiling factor too. You're actually aggregating more speed over time by correcting for the retraction of the punch. So all of that's a lot of words just to say we're going to try throwing some right hands, and I want you to focus on bringing the hand right back to your chin. Go ahead. So we just worked on this. I noticed a noticeable improvement in everybody's punch capacity, especially when I pulled out the Johnny Whopper, right? Turns out the threat of imminent injury is one of those things that will motivate you. But really, there's a noticeable improvement, right? So that whole thing is you're rotating, you're dropping at the end of the punch, but more importantly for today's lesson, as soon as you make contact, you're ripping that hand back to your chin. Reduces the time of contact, thereby increasing your power. It also makes the punch go faster. So another part of that is to use the bounce. That means, if there is a counter movement of your hand, right? So you deliver it, you hit your target, you feel it bounce off, use that, bang. Use that as your initial point of getting your hand back to your chin. All right, so punch speed considerations. Number one, relaxation of all parts. What does that mean? Well, that means every bit of you should be relaxed. I don't want you to sit there and be tight the whole time, because what happens is you blow out your muscles and then you get muscle fatigue faster. Secondly, pull each punch from the opposite direction. When you're throwing a hook, comes from that direction. When you're throwing a two, comes from behind you. When you're throwing a jab, comes from behind you. When you're throwing an uppercut, comes up from the ground. Does that make sense? It's a pull. It's like a throw. That's why you throw punches. That's why you don't push punches. All right. So So every punch is a reaction to the actions of the feet. So that means you're either pulling yourself forward with that frontward step or you're rotating. Your foot movement is going to be the thing that determines that. And then when you get a little bit more advanced, then you start moving with your punches, right? Then you start stepping in using all of your body weight to help your momentum by stepping into the punch. It's something we've worked on before. All right. Number 4, focus on bringing the hand back faster than you threw it out. This will increase speed in both the out and the in movement. You might have noticed that while you were focusing on bringing the hand back, you might have sped up the front end of your punch too, right? Most people will do that because while they're thinking about this, they start to just speed up the whole process. And so that is a byproduct of just really considering like thinking about being fast, but B, the other thing is you will relax as you start getting more comfortable with the idea of getting the punch out and then back in. And last, the hands stay relaxed until they make contact. Don't hold them tight inside the glove. Right? So, and it's funny because we cover this every couple months, but it's amazing how people either forget or whatever. Or sometimes you have a tendency to get tension, like when you're playing guitar, you have a tendency to get tension into the shoulder, the elbow, or the wrist, kind of depending on how you play. But what that does is that throws your playing off. It's the same thing while you're boxing. When you're throwing a punch, if you're maintaining unnecessary tension, it's going to force you to hurt things, or it's going to force you to get slow, or it's going to make you cultivate bad habits. So now what we're going to do is I want you to throw whatever combination you want. If you're not creative, just throw a 1, 1, 2, 3. But what I want you to focus on is every single punch you're going to throw, bring the hand back to the chin as fast as you can. Practice that retraction. But on top of that, I want you to keep your hands completely relaxed throughout the entirety of the punch until you make contact. So look, my hand is loose, makes a fist at full extension, and then it's loose again. Right? All right, go ahead. If you don't know what to do, do 1, 1, 2, 3, or you can do whatever combination you want. Go ahead, give it a whirl.
Speed and power are not
Antithetical, right? Big word. All right, so speed and power are not antithetical. What are antithetical is inefficient power and speed. And that's when you've got this guy who's nice and rigid, right? And he's going like this, and he's throwing his big looping punch, right? Can you generate power like that? Yes, you're engaging more muscles. Why is that a bad idea?
you get tired quicker.
You get tired, you can hurt yourself, you could throw bad punch mechanics that wind up actually injuring you. But most typically, the result is you're going to burn out of energy way faster. It's because you're staying fully engaged and because you're making big, wide looping motions. And what happens? You dig into the ground, you probably stop pivoting, and then you start using your legs like this, which is also inefficient. At the end of the day, what is better than that is to have efficient power. So, if you are using 100%, all right, we'll be a little bit more realistic. We'll say 95% energy to get that like big looping motion, and you can get, we'll say 20 punches out of that. Right? That's biting down in your mouth guard, biting through your mouth guard just to be able to throw a couple big hurt bombs at somebody. Or, if let's say you reduce it to 85% efficient power, which will decline, it'll taper off over time, so it'll go to like 85, and then it'll be 80, and then it'll be 75. And if you're well trained and you have a good cardiovascular output, you'll probably get down to about the 60% level, but still be able to function. Versus this 95% is going to last for 20 punches, and then what's going to happen? It's not going to taper, it's going to fall off a cliff. So you're going to go from 95 to 25% power. If you're fighting over a long time, which is, 4 amateur rounds or longer at 3 minutes, which of these do you think is going to work better? The second option, obviously. And that's why punch efficiency and power management are so important. And they're so poorly understood that we have trainers and we have gyms out there that are just speaking nonsense into existence. So that's why we're here today. So, speed and power are not antithetical. Efficiency is the most important element of power. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on, you guys remember when we did that drill where we pulled our arms out like this and threw hooks like this because we were rotating from our feet? Yep, we're just going to do that. So get your hands out, thumbs up, 90-degree angle on the bag. And I just want you to work on rotating like this, because what this is teaching you is to get your body into the structural position that helps you align the most bone mass behind your punch. All right, go ahead and give that a whirl. I'll come by and help. Over. The other two considerations we got here. All right, so speed and power are not antithetical. We got that, right? Efficiency from bone alignment, foot movement, and pull mechanics allow you to integrate speed and power. So how do you make all those things work together? By mechanical efficiency. That's why I harp so much on how you throw your punch. Punch mechanics, or kick mechanics, or knee mechanics, or elbow mechanics, whatever weapon you're using, even a sword, right? The more efficiently you use the weapon and your body as a weapon, the more your speed, your strength, endurance, and all those things are going to last. Does that make sense? All right, so the three dimensions or dynamics of power in combat, or combat sports, or hand-to-hand combat, are weight shift. What does weight shift mean? Foot to foot, right? Your weight's either here or your weight's here. It's either front or it's back. It's either left or it's right. Right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Number two, lifting, dropping, and change in elevation. When you throw an uppercut, your weight's down, you're bringing it up. Right? The last one, rotation. In an ideal world, you would integrate all three into every punch. But there is an ordo condescendi, a condescending order of principles required for you to be able to throw the most efficient punch possible. When you throw a jab, you can try to put rotation into it, but a jab is a straight punch that is designed to go straight. And since it comes out on this side, if you try to rotate the foot underneath it, it's going to deviate. Just like when you throw your shoulder out, you're going to telegraph. The best jab is the jab that lands, even if it doesn't come out as powerfully as it could as if you torqued your torso, because this is a huge telegraph. So if I'm here and I throw my jab like this, you're going to see my shoulder move and you're going to get out of the way, or you're going to catch, or you're going to slip. And then that jab's not going to land. And if that jab doesn't land, why did I throw it? So the more I can conceal my jab, the better off it's going to be, because it's more likely to land. Does that make sense? Yes. All right. So because of the fact that there is a standing order, a rank order of precedence in all of these different principles, you have to make sure you align them. So you have to remove the dynamic of power that doesn't belong in whatever punch you're throwing. In an uppercut, you can very well use transfer, rotation, and lift, which is why an uppercut, when it's thrown correctly and it lands cleanly, is such a devastating shot. It's because you can integrate. You can integrate the rotation, the lift, and the transfer to the other foot, especially if you're moving, and the three together is just going to make a more devastating punch. Does that make sense? All right, that being the case, we're going to go on the bag, and we're going to throw 1, 6, 3, 2. Why? Because in that combination, you get to use all of the dynamics of power, and you get to practice them in one handy-dandy combination. 1, 6, 3, 2. Give it a whirl.